Darren, welcome to the Feminine Frequency. I'm so grateful and excited to have you here.
It's an honor to be on a platform where you typically have women on here and for you to feel safe enough in your knowingness to be like, yeah, I want this guy on. So I just want to acknowledge you for what it would take to feel that level of sensitivity and
Hmm.
and trust and have me on. And I don't take that lightly. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I am very discerning about, yeah, making sure that my guests are not only, aligned for my audience, but that they have something unique to bring to this conversation. And that's really what I see in you. And I had the honor of having your wife on the podcast, Blair, a few months ago. And she was like, you got to have Garen on the show. And it was a full yes for me. So thank you for being here. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, even just starting there. Like you work with a lot of women and you host retreats and you hold this space for women. And it takes a lot for women to feel safe in those spaces. So even just starting there for you, what does that take for you as a man to be able to hold that space for women who are going through their transformation and who are doing deeper healing work?
I will tell you, I have several people to thank for this. My mother, who's the most resilient woman I have ever experienced in my entire life. My daughter, Kylia, she's 23 years old, and who I was when I was living in my car, broken down, and what I've had to work through to earn her trust because I didn't know at the time you can't give love that you don't have for yourself. So she was the perfect messenger of growth for me during that time, 22 years ago. And myself, the part of me who was bold and courageous enough to know that there was an unlived version of me inside of the broken boy trying to be a man with no real role models. So I lived a life where I cheated on every girlfriend I'd ever had, backstabbing. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know any other way to be. There were no role models for me. They was like, this is a man. I'm like, he's doing the same thing that I'm doing. I'm like, and the world is glorifying this person. So I was trying, but I didn't know where to put my efforts in trying. So I just did what I saw. And so during that time, I was $250,000 in debt, ex convict, lived in my car for 2.5 years, tried to kill myself twice. So it wasn't just that I was just randomly like sleeping with all of these women. I was so wounded. Little boy in an adult body was so wounded that I thought the only way that I could distract myself from feeling the shame and the guilt and the ugly and the hatred for myself was to numb myself out with everything scrolling, food, women, and all this. Now I'm connecting the dots looking backwards. But the shining light on all of this as I book in this portion of the conversation is I wanted a relationship with my daughter, who was 15 at the time, so bad. And no matter what I did, no matter how much money I made, none of it mattered. She wouldn't even talk to me. Don't ever call me again. I didn't know that don't ever call me again meant lean in even harder. So I was like, I'm just trying to listen to what you said. You told me to never call, right? And so I wanted it so bad. I was like, well, maybe it's something about me. And that was the first time in my life I looked inside and said, maybe there's something about me. So I enrolled in emotional intelligence, relationships courses, communications courses, 10 days in the dark, 5 days in silence, spiritual psychology. And every single one of those things that I enrolled in, I was just trying to find out what it was about me that my daughter didn't trust. It wasn't until a guy named Steve at the end of a silent retreat, he was like, safe to say, you're a good looking guy. Safe to say you can get any girl you want. I said, yep. He said, go and get a date with your daughter. He had been with me in different programs, so he's seen me talk about the same thing and not get the result. He said, go get a date with your daughter. And it was in that moment right there. I said, "Oh my goodness. I'm surrounded by all these women that I take advantage, but I've never asked a woman what she wants." Every background, every religion, it didn't matter. They all said the same thing: seen, heard. They wanted to feel safe and they wanted to feel acknowledged. I was like, I've never even given my own mom that. But it wasn't until and I'm spending a lot of time on this because this is not just a short answer. It wasn't until I saw the identity that was completely different than the one I was born and raised with, because I modeled my life based off of every other unhealthy man, including my dad. And I saw myself as the most powerful representation of who my daughter will marry one day. When I said that and I created a new identity, I started shifting based off of how I saw myself. When I started shifting within 2 months, my daughter goes, "Daddy, you're different." And the way I would hold her, the way that I would show up no matter what, the way that I would pursue her, the way that I would look and listen not to what she was saying, but what her heart, the deepening was expressing. I didn't know that I'd never let a woman in my life until that moment when I had my heart cracked open for my daughter. That's when I met my wife. And they have a very similar personality. We've been together for 6 years now. We have 2 kids now. I'm a devoted husband, devoted father, and I got to experience the vastness of the 20-year difference of who I am now and who I was back then. So I literally had a model of the whole range of man living inside of my body right now. So this level of safety is what was needed in my body in order to get the relationship back with my daughter. Now I can't unsee who I need to be for all women.
Such an empowering journey. And what I'm hearing so much of is that your relationship with your daughter was such a teacher for you and a mirror for you, and maybe even a mirror of your relationship with yourself, too. I know that you teach a lot about inner child work and really showing up for that little boy who didn't have that role model, who didn't have the love and the safety that he needed. And so, yeah, I'm curious for you with inner child healing, how has that supported you to create more of that stability and wholeness from within?
Well, it was everything. I have a saying that says adults are deteriorated children. And a lot of times people are focusing on surface level things. And that's why they keep attracting the same kind of guy. I was like, why do I keep attracting the same? Yeah, because he's a fractal of your dad who you haven't healed from, or your mom who you haven't healed from. And it's like, well, the program will keep running. You can change your name, you can move away, no matter what. You still got to take yourself with you, and how you're vibrating, your frequency, that in itself, that's like, okay, you whatever song you play on the radio, that's who you're attracting is as the listener. When you realize how powerful your frequency is and know how to tune it, to be unconscious to what's attuning the what you're attracting, that's like a walking cemetery, not knowing that you're a living dead person. So the inner child, I feel, is the safest way and the gateway to learn about why things have trickled to the surface the way that they do. You don't just have this trigger or these random traumas because someone's like speaking at you and not asking you questions. They don't just appear. Sometimes you don't know how deep we can go, but like there's epigenetics of the DNA lineage, but we'll just keep it right here as the little kid. When the little kid says, "You're too loud, be a good girl, be a good boy. This is what men do. This is what little girls do. And be kind, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that." All of a sudden, you start getting controlled out of your natural state. Anything that's out of alignment with nature will cause chaos. And now we see why we live mostly in a world of suffering, because most people aren't authentic versions of themselves. But if they had a space where they felt safe enough to express their natural thoughts, their natural voice. You always wanted to be a dancer, but you shut that dancer out 20 years ago because one person hurt you. Not realizing your greatest capacity to create is when you're in the frequency of who you become while you're dancing. It's not about the business, it's who you become while you're doing it. And so my work is whatever's in the way of your natural state, I know how to support you and create the right combination of people, accountability, leadership, and practices that will unclog that spiritual dam so that the flow of who you really are can be plugged into this universe and the atmosphere can work in your favor and not against you.
Yeah, I have a huge smile on my face because I was looking at your page the other day and you have this quote. I think it's something like authenticity is your highest frequency. And that's something that I live by and that I teach in my program, Multidimensional Woman. And that is so true to the message of this podcast. And I'd love to elaborate on that and just unpack that. Like when someone is in their authentic frequency, maybe even we talk about what that is, and
Yeah.
then how does that make them more magnetic? How does that make them
Yeah.
more attractive? All right, my love, I'm popping in here with a special invitation for you as my dear Feminine Frequency podcast listener. If you've been feeling the call to step into your next level of feminine leadership, confidence, and authentic self expression, I am so excited to invite you to my signature program, the Multidimensional Woman Mentorship. This 6-month journey is designed to help you to reconnect with your feminine energy, to release good girl conditioning, and to step fully into your power, pleasure, and purpose. Inside of this mentorship, you'll experience deep nervous system healing and embodiment work to awaken your magnetism and gain the confidence to lead from love and live from your truth. We begin on July 3rd, and there are only 7 spots left in this program. So if you're ready to rise into the woman that you came here to be, book your complimentary Multidimensional Woman Breakthrough session by scrolling down to the link in the show notes. I'm also offering some special bonuses, including $600 savings when you book your call before May 20th. I cannot wait to meet the version of you that's waiting on the other side of this journey. So book your call today and enjoy the rest of this episode.
Okay, so we need to backtrack a little bit and see how we even got here in the first place. Because we have been brainwashed by a society that brought us in public school system. But to know the history of public schools is get them while they're young. The reason why they created free public education originally was to groom factory workers. They have not changed that education system in 400 years. So that's why we have so many below average people while technology is thriving, is because ages 0 to 7 is where the installation for your entire life gets programmed. And so it would make sense why elementary school teachers get the least amount of money, because they already, if you're getting $35,000 for an entire year, you're only going to get a specific kind of person. But they pay the college professors a lot more money, and it's backwards because the installation period for children is ages 0 to 7. So the elementary school teachers should get the most money. And if they did, you get a different caliber of a teacher. Now, this is how we got here. So when we're talking about, it pertains to the question that you ask, we're taught to read linearly from an education system that was grooming us to be factory workers linearly. You do this structure, follow orders, put these no windows, because there's no windows in factories. It's like basically making robots. Since children, they take art out of elementary. Now there's no more art in public schools and music. That you're literally taking out the very nature of the thing that taps us into who we really are as multidimensional beings. So this is how we get here. It's not any of these other things you think it is, and the war and all that other stuff. All of that's on the surface. You can track it all the way back to a little child that doesn't feel seen, heard, like they matter in the world. They've been told to shut up. You're too loud. You're too much. You're too this. No, you need to follow orders, talk quietly, do all of this. But during those times is where expression is trying to learn itself. So if you shut a child down and they minimize their expression, expression will come out as alcohol usage as you get older, porn, over sexualizing, scrolling, social media, living vicariously through reality TV shows, which takes you away from your own reality. This is how we get here. So if I can teach someone how to reparent themselves starting from where the installation period was installed, then you have a fighting chance to live as your multidimensional self and not this linear way of thinking. Because if you're taught to read linearly, then you're taught to think linearly. And if you think linearly, then that will take you away from the messages in your dreams, the messages of your hunches, the messages of the small voices, the messages of your intuition. And every single one of those are all a part of you. So my role in this world as a bridge between humanity and the spiritual realm that you can't see, I just practically know how to teach it in a very effective way. This is why. And then my veins pop out because it's like being able to create a school for the multidimensional beings and boldly put myself out there and know how to teach it pre-K all the way up to scholar. This is why I do the programs that I do and why it churns out the results that they churn out, because I teach you how to be your true self. So authenticity is not what you think it is. The reason why it's the highest form of frequency, because love has way different variations. You could be in a oh my God, he loves me. And you go back to the relationship and he keeps beating on your face. That's not love. But if you saw it modeled through mom and dad, that will be what you think love is. When you're your authentic nature, you tap into the vibrational resonance in your body. You can be in a room full of people who don't like you. You can feel it. The vibration, your intelligence in your body will speak, and it's way smarter than anything you can linearly come up with through your analytical thinking. This is not intelligence. This is just somebody with a great memory. This, your body, your ancient and ancestral wisdom is intelligence. So in your authentic state, you gain access to all of your multidimensional selves housed in this one vessel. That's why authenticity is so important.
I love that you took it back to that root, and it really is, in a way, I feel like it's an unlearning process. It's like unlearning all the shit, the programming that got us to where we are today, and then like you said, almost reinstalling a new software, which it's not really a new software, it's a remembering, right? It's like a remembering of what was
Absolutely.
originally there before the toxic programming came in. So I really feel that connection that you help people to make is to coming back to their true essence beyond the programming of the mind and coming back into their heart and their body. I love how you differentiated that as well. It's such a key piece of what they call, it's like the gnosis. It's the gnosis, the knowing in the body, not the knowledge of the mind. And that's, like you said, where the ancestral wisdom and the soul wisdom, the soul knowing comes from.
Someone said to me the other day, "It's like, Garrain, you have a lot of wisdom. Can you tell us what you know?" And I said, I only know one thing. I know that I know nothing. However, there's an infinite knowing that's beyond me that is still a part of me, that when I surrender what I think I know, I tap into this different kind of knowing, which makes me feel connected to everything, and I become separate from nothing, which makes me all of it. I say that's one thing I know. And I love that you bring this up because when people grasp who they really are beyond the world of thought, everything that you're clawing through your life to try to achieve will be made manifest because of who you really are. And maybe this may not make sense to somebody who's watching this podcast now, but let me be a version of Yoda, like on Star Wars. All he needed to do is plant the seed when I was 5 years old. All we need to do on this call, plant the seed. It will come back around. Because I remember watching Star Wars. I'm just like, something about Yoda. And I was too young to process. Go and watch the original Star Wars again. And then Yoda, Luke Skywalker is like, oh, it's too hard to move this thing. He was like, the force is all around you. It's in you. It's everywhere. And he was like, oh, I'll give it a try. He was like, no, there is no try. Do or do not. And he said, you must unlearn everything that you've learned. And I'm like, this is what I was watching when I was 5. Let me serve as that owl every 3 rounds in the video game when you're on your quest. That wise owl. What we are sharing right now, allow it to be the seed that plants into your mental soil and allow that to grow. And over time, it will make sense.
So good. Yeah, when I remember this reminded me of when I read a book in high school that someone recommended, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I believe. And I was like, I read it and I got a few pages in and I was like, I got no idea what this is talking about. And then came back around to it when I was ready to receive it, when I was ready to understand it. And it was such a potent book that I was like, wow, I wish I understood this earlier. And the seed had been planted, the seed around personal growth and presence and all of that had been planted. So I love that you bring back this example of things that we've heard and that were planted a long time ago. And I really feel, the media of podcasting is that, a lot of people listen to podcasts and the seeds are planted. And then that's just the beginning. Like the awareness is just the spark, it's the beginning. But the deeper work happens in retreats. The deeper work happens when you devote yourself to actually doing the work, getting in the room, not just listening, not just hearing. And people will do that when they're ready to make actual changes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a parent, you have 3 children, but you've got 2 young children. And
Yeah.
what you know about authenticity now, how are you encouraging and supporting your children to be their authentic selves, to tap into their creativity, to connect to their awe and wonder? I'd love to hear what you're doing to foster that.
It's the other way around. I'm not encouraging them. They're reminding me. And I'm conscious enough to catch it. The areas of my life where I'm not authentically sharing what I like and what I don't like. The areas of my life where I'm not pushing every button and opening up the doors because I'm curious. Chief and Soul. Soul is 3 and Chief is 9 months. It's the other way around. I actually don't know any better because it was programmed out of me. And so having kids, now discipline, I know better. How to focus and lock in on something that's really meaningful for me, even when it's difficult, I know better. So the times that I show up is when Soul says, I can't do it. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. But what I'm learning from Soul and Chief is how to continuously have childlike joy, how to love no matter what, how to know exactly what I want and what I don't want, and what I like and what I don't like, and not hold in my truth, my voice of expression. I'm like, oh, thank you, wise ancient ones that we call babies. We give them our language, we give them our traumas or the insecurities that we haven't yet worked on. Like I saw something in my daughter of a habit, a childhood habit nobody knows about and have never told anybody. I literally, because of epigenetics, just like looks transfer, so does epigenetic coding. I watched it go through her. And I was like, oh my goodness, it transfers even if they don't see it. So you can't even hide it. That's the moment I said, you know what? Thank you for teaching that I can't hide from myself. Because if you're a part of my lineage, that also includes the self. So I faced those parts of me and said, little Garrain, I am so sorry that I've been avoiding looking at this aspect of you. I threw out the word parenting. I'm teaching and learning. Like I know a lot about frequency. I know the language of it, resonance, vibration, music, all that stuff. This is what I teach my kids. All the other stuff, they are reteaching me how to remember. And I'm not missing a moment because, wow, Soul keeps hitting kids and all this. You didn't see it at our house. And oh my goodness, and we should reprimand. And of course, there's no violence. I said, or I wonder if she could have probably been the greatest MMA fighter of all times. And there's a natural expression want to come out. Let's see what happens. And when we put her in jujitsu, we put a 3-year-old in jujitsu with 5 and 6-year-old boys. Day one, the trainers were like, how did she just pick this up so fast? And all of a sudden, all of this expression of hitting starts to get channeled. And all of a sudden, she starts developing and is just as good as the 6-year-old boys. Not saying, hey, you can beat the boys. No, You put them in the right environment and let what the natural expression come out, and it will do what it does. So I recognized something that was authentic in her that she didn't learn from the house. So clearly it's inside of her. So let
Mhm.
me expose her to the environment that fosters whatever that is. She had perfect rhythm. This is unheard of for a child at 4 months old having perfect rhythm to 7 different styles of music and was rolling her body and doing. I was like, well, maybe we should just put her around dancers. If you watch 3-year-old Soul right now, she has more rhythm than most humans in the world. It's already inside of her, but I could have easily skipped past that. So this is how I'm doing it is I'm teaching when I need to teach, but it's just like discipline and how to say no, yes, you can. She makes up her bed. I don't say it just because. She's always asking why for everything. Why do I need to make my bed? Because it develops mental strength, and you'll be able to like literally protect and provide for your family when you get older. You want that? Yes. This is why we make the bed now. Okay. Next week. So why do we make the bed? Because it develops mental strength and I'll be able to protect and provide for my family when I get older. Don't think that just because the child hasn't developed that part of their brain that they can't duplicate what you say until the time is right. You read the book Power of Now, the seed gets planted, then it comes back around. That's why a child at the age of 4 can know 7 different languages. They don't know that, but then all of a sudden they have 7 different languages when they get older.
Mhm. Yeah, so inspiring. And I shared this when I talked to Blair. I was just like, this is the new paradigm. And what a gift to your children and to other parents to be in this reframe as of parenting, as teaching and learning. And what a gift that you're offering a space for your daughter to channel her expression in ways that are healthy and supportive for her. And I'm so excited to see who Soul becomes. And it's been really fun to watch from afar how you guys are really creating that space for her to thrive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very someone asked me what is your greatest accomplishment? I've accomplished a lot of things in my lifetime. Best-selling books, several multi-million-dollar companies. I mean, you just name it. Retired my mom when I was 15. Just my greatest accomplishment is developing into the caliber of a man who knows without a shadow of a doubt an aligned family is true wealth. Who knows without a shadow of a doubt what happens to you and through you when you bring yourself to commit in a relationship. It's easy to create justifiable scapegoats, but when you drive your Triton into the ground and the commitment comes first and it demagnetizes all distractions, developing into the kind of man that can be around any beautiful woman and not lose himself and not carry leaky sexual energy because my foundation is so strong. That has me knowing without a shadow of a doubt of who I am as fathering the next generation of woman in our household and the next generation of man in our household as baby chief gets to see how I treat Soul and how I honor his mother. There's hope for men, but a lot of men don't have examples. So my greatest accomplishment is becoming the man that I always needed in my life and letting go of all shame, guilt, rage, or blame for those who didn't know that they were capable of doing the work that I've done. Because a present father and a radically present man who knows himself, the level, the caliber of how it can push humanity forward. And we need men and women, but the women's strength is way different. It doesn't come from doing. A man's strength comes from doing. A woman's strength comes from being, and it accesses her intuition, and she whispers to the man, and the man carries out the mission. And all of a sudden, this thing happens called the infinity, and there's not two halves make a whole, it's two halves make a zero, two wholes make infinity. And when each person knows who they are, my greatest accomplishment is knowing, that deep knowing without a shadow of a doubt, this is what I get to bring to the next phase of humanity.
Mm. And thank you. Thank you for doing that work and for being able to articulate that. And I do see a lot of men really leaning in to start doing their work. And I'm really appreciative of the men who are waking up right now and
Yeah.
who are, you know, unlearning and who are meeting themselves in these really deep ways to become more embodied men who can make a really big difference on this planet. So thank you for being a leader in that space,
Yeah.
for being an example of
They're
that.
trying. We're trying our best, but just like when I was doing that with the women, deep down inside, I didn't want to do it. I just didn't know any other way to operate because I did what I saw. That's
Mhm.
what everyone did. People do what they see. You listen to who you relate to. There were no examples. Show it. Oh, this person is a devoted man. Yeah, but he's got no money. He doesn't know anything about business. All right, cool. Well, I'll take that from him. This person's got the business. He cheats on his wife. He doesn't have a relationship with his. This was all my whole growing up. There was no solid thing for me to see, especially when it comes to family. And I know that even being where I live, I know they want family. So it's the example piece. And so I'm really grateful to be one of the leaders in that arena that does have it all and continues to evolve and be open to what else the universe wants to reveal for my own expansion.
Yeah, you talk about harmonized leadership, and I love that term, and I'd love to learn more about that. What does that mean to you?
So if you took away all titles, black, white, man, woman, boy, girl, those are all constructs that somebody gave that to us. Doesn't know that he doesn't know what boy means. There's just testosterone and there's just whatever until we give it titles and then you live based off the identity that somebody's given to you. I was raised by all women. My father wasn't around. My mom separated. My father was murdered when I was 12. I was raised by all women. So I was like a cheat code to just, it's like being like a boy raised with wolves. He's going to act more like the environment that shapes him. And so being raised by all women, I got to see what they talked about. I got to hear the gossip corner and I got to see all these different things and the elements of the women in my family. But there was no masculine around me, and then all of a sudden I ran in the streets. I went in and out of jail, so it was just this. There was a masculine part of me, and I don't believe in like toxic masculinity. I just believe in toxic people who happen to be masculine and who happen to be feminine, and so I just became a toxic person because that's all I saw. But it wasn't until I moved to Austin that I saw that there's a different version of a man. And I studied and I learned and I even created a men's group along with Stefano Sifandos and Preston Smiles. And I was like learning from them. I was like, oh, they're not all like my dad and from when I was a little kid. And so just by being there, but then there's something happened. They let me in deeper than they let other men in. And I was like, oh, I realized that the part of me that they let in deeper was the feminine that I fully embraced and accepted inside of myself. They didn't know it, but I looked like them so I could get closer than any other woman. But I accepted the woman, the feminine inside of me. And I saw on the other side, 94% of my clientele is powerful, driven women. And I was like, God, why do you keep sending me women? All this other stuff. And every single time a woman would come up with me after we worked together, thank you for what? Showing me my future husband. I didn't even know it existed until I witnessed you. I saw how you honored your wife when she wasn't around. And I said, but I'd never seen it before. I've never seen devotion. I've heard devotion. I've read about it, but I've never seen it as walking wisdom, lived action. And I was like, so the part of me that draws the woman in is the masculine, the healthy masculine that majority of women have never been exposed to. And that's why safety was so important because I didn't want anything. So just by being in proximity to me, even at my retreats, there's lots of things to learn, but just to see no leaky sexual energy, there's like, oh, it was healing the masculine inside of them. And so I literally coined this phrase. It's in harmony with nature. So it's the harmonized man or the harmonized leader or the harmonized woman that literally embodies in a healthy way the masculine and the feminine. And you literally transcend both constructs and return back to nature.
So powerful and so aligned with what we teach here on the feminine frequency, because it's not just about being embodied in one essence or the other. It is that even that inner infinity symbol that you were talking about that we see in partnership, but cultivating that within ourselves. And yeah, having that lived experience of being in the presence of someone who embodies something that you haven't seen before. I recently brought in my partner. We did a coaching session with some of my clients. And like you said, there were lots of things that we shared that were powerful and that they learned from. But what a lot of them shared was witnessing how he looks at me, witnessing his presence with me, witnessing how he listens to me was something that they were like, oh, okay, I see that. I feel that. I now know that that's possible. And I see what that looks like. So I can start to really hold the standard and I can and be available for that level. And I'm worthy of receiving that. It's possible for me to have that. So yeah, having those tangible experiences of feeling safe with a man or being around a man who has clean sexual energy and isn't needing or wanting anything from you is such a gift that, once someone has experienced that, then they know what that feels like in their body, what that feels like to feel safe around someone. Yeah.
Yeah. I only God could take someone like me with the past history that I have and bring me to the space that I'm in right now. And of course, it was an act of co-creation. Last year, this time, this muralist painted me on the side of a 100-foot building and just she asked me for a photo. I didn't know why. She was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do a painting about you." And I was just, next thing you know, she unveils this huge mural on the side of a building next to all of these extraordinary leaders in the world. Said, Aaron is the example of the divine masculine. And I've never seen a better example. The way that he treats his wife and everything, it has healed me just by experiencing the presence. So that's why I thought it was important to literally paint this huge mural. And I broke down. I was crying for 3 days because it really set in stone. I'm a representation of divine masculine where I come from. There's no way that you could see possibility for how I used to be.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh my God, wow. And I got my daughter. I got my wife. I got my kids. I got my life. I got my mom. There's so many things that comes from choosing to be a standard of excellence and thriving to evolve and look at your stuff and being responsible and taking accountability and owning all of it without shying away.
Mm.
That's the hardest work I've ever done in my entire life. And I'll continue to stand in the face of that and also support our men and not feeling shameful for not knowing because all I needed was somebody to look me in the eyes to say, is that how you want to live your life? There's a better way. Let me show you. Look at this. There was not that for me. So I had to learn the hard way. So it's not that they're not trying. There's not a lot of examples of the wholeness, but we're coming for sure.
Yeah, and that is providing hope for people who have maybe not come from an upbringing where that they feel proud of or lived a life that feel proud of, and to know that it is possible to do this deeper transformation work and to become the man or woman who deep down they know that they came here to be. So, yeah, thank you again for sharing your story and your journey. And before we wrap up here, there's one more piece of your work that I'm like, I can't not invite this into the conversation. And this is about creativity and
Yeah.
really activating the artist within. So I kind of want to land our conversation there. And I want you to speak to our listeners about the importance and the power of tapping into their creative essence.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about multidimensionality earlier, it's the creator that has access to all of those points. Well, your greatest capacity to create, you are actually born with. the child. So if there were magically some outlet that could teach people how to remember that context of your life where you were the most creative, the most energetic, the most spiritually bound without even knowing it, that'd be probably a good course and a good retreat and a good book to read. So, I channeled this company called Artist Power. The artist is the little kid who remembers. Sometimes the mom was like, I really want to go to your retreat, but I'm not an artist. I was like, you're not? I was like, you got kids? She's like, yeah. I was like, what part of you created them? Listen to the word create. I was like, you ever made their lunch before? I said, you ever sliced those oranges in perfect slices? I was like, what part of you was doing that? Slice that ham, that sandwich in half? You ever dress them in matching clothes? Hey, mom, you're an artist. You just forgot. You just use it. You just use it in ways that it's so out of your mind. So if there was a way that you could amplify the creator inside of you, when you tap into the deepest reaches of that little kid inside, that's the access point to your multidimensionality. That's the access point to your ancient wisdom without needing to take plant medicine. And there's a time and space for it. But if there was a safe way that your nervous system could open up without you having to dissolve your ego. And then you gain access. What you're ultimately telling the neurons in your brain is, I can be like this without any outside substance. So I talk about the creator, but to truly be creative is a spiritual act. Art is a spiritual act. And I know how to teach it in a very practical way, in a business way, in a leadership way, in a community way. And so I created a company that was based off of the school of multidimensionality, where leaders come from all over the world. Because I don't look at people as just random people. You are a leader. You are someone that was destined for greatness. So I'm going to look at you in your highest light and then position you with the right combination of people so that whatever you're doing can amplify 10x, because flowers that grow together grow much faster together than they do by themselves. So artist power awakened is only awakening the part of you that is the most magical part of you. Now, I wonder what would happen if you plant that inside of your parenting. You plant that inside of your business. You plant that inside of whatever you're launching. You plant that inside of your sex life. You plant that inside of your intimate relationships and your conversations and your friendships. It's not the other way around. It's me, and everything outside of me benefits from my overflow.
So beautiful. Yes, I love that you've created this process to help people tap into this. And I know that you have an in person retreat and online program. So, for our listeners who want to tap into your work and who want to receive your medicine and your wisdom after they listen to this podcast, where can they find you?
So, well, you can definitely find me on Instagram, Garrain.Jones, and you can go to my website, which is GarrainJones.com. And my next retreat is June through the 8th here in Austin, Texas. If you ever played the game Mario Kart,
Sure did.
you drive over that arrow and it speeds the game up 5 times faster. Consider this 3-day activation in June, Mario Kart, with whatever you're creating in your life. How valuable would that be if you knew that there was a high vibrational community, leadership excellence, no leaky energy, deep safe space, practical ways and tools that you can use for the rest of your life to access the multidimensional aspect of yourself while we're singing and dancing and drumming and chanting and painting, and woven in all of that is safer ways to heal and transcend those traumas and get underneath the trauma and get to the vibration and lift it out because of the breath and the movement and the sounds and all those different things. That is a portal that is just waiting for you. And June 6th through the 8th will be, and I can boldly say this, one of the greatest decisions you will ever make for your life, for an eternity that will lead right into your offspring and their offspring and their offspring. Consider this the blue line in the sand and the moment you chose to remember deeper, vaster, and much more powerful.
Thank you for creating this, and I'm excited for our listeners to learn more and to join you in Austin. We'll make sure to include the link in the show notes for your retreat and all of your work. And thank you again for being here. I'm so grateful for your wisdom and for you sharing your empowering story with us today.
You're so welcome, and thank you so much for being bold. This is bold enough to for being bold enough to open up your wings for stories like mine. And I just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of The Feminine Frequency. If you're finding value in this podcast, a cost-free way that you can support us is by leaving a rating and a review. As a thank you gift, we're going to send you a free feminine embodiment class to activate your confidence, your sensuality, and your wild, authentic expression. Just head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify to leave a review now and take a screenshot before hitting submit. Once you leave your review, send me a message on Instagram at AmyNatalieCo with your screenshot so you can get the link for the class. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. There's so much magic coming your way. Lastly, if you're ready to explore some one-on-one or group coaching together, click on the link in the show notes to submit your application for a complimentary empowerment coaching session. I can't wait to see you next week for another episode. Have a beautiful rest of your day.